Do you love Warhammer and the massive scale of the things in the universe, but you don't have excessive amounts of disposable or honestly money set aside for rent to spend on a Warlord Titan? Well, maybe the Knights are a good choice for you. Andrew and I are going to investigate the newly released index for the Imperial Knights and let you know if these towering Titans are worth playing on the field of battle.
Welcome to Talk About Tatooine. I'm Andrew.
I'm Nathan.
And we are twin brothers here to bring you what's new in nerddom and give colorful commentary on our favorite subjects. Welcome to our cantina. Grab a drink and settle in as we set course for galaxies beyond our own. Okay, opening question. This is something that I don't think I gave you enough time to think about. What is an acronym that you thought meant one thing, but it really meant another?
We use a lot of different acronyms in my field, and so there's just so many of them to choose from, and they're usually really, really specific. So, like you have your acromioclavicular joint. It's a ACJ, and you have all these other things, and sternocleidomastoid, which is SCM, and you're just like, there's so many that just get thrown out for me on a daily basis that I'm like, oh gosh, what is that? And unfortunately, none of them immediately conjure up inappropriateness, which is kind of a bummer. One of my favorites is the FAJ, the FAJ, which is and it almost sounds dirty. It's so close to sounding dirty, but it's your femoral acetabular joint. So close. Obviously. It's so close to being like considered a little bit inappropriate, but it's not quite there. So
I don't know any of these words. What the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, so we use everything as an acronym in our field. So it's bonkers.
Yeah, I work in aerospace and we're very much the same way, even to the point where we have some acronyms that are the same but can mean different things depending on the context. One of them is CMM. CMM can stand for Coordinate Measurement Machine, which is this cool little robot that runs around with a ruby probe and like pokes your stuff and measures it. Super cool, super expensive. The software for it still gives me nightmares, but then CMM can also stand for Component Maintenance Manual. Not even related. So that's annoying. But one thing as far as like acronyms in slang is SMH. I am not kidding. For the majority of my life, I was probably 26 when I figured out this meant something different than what I thought it was. I'm 28, so it's not that long ago. I thought SMH meant some mad hate.
Interesting. That's not where I thought you were going to go with that. So SMH, if you guys don't know, it stands for Shake My Head. And every time I read it, I always think it is Suck My Head. And I'm like... I'm like, no, that's not it. I'm like, that's the inappropriate version. So I'm like, that kind of makes sense.
I low-key didn't even think of it as like the inappropriate version of head, but someone literally unhooking their jaw and trying to suck on the top of my head. Like,
just full velociraptor. You're like, no.
As we always say on the channel, never go full velociraptor.
We've said that now a total of one time.
We would like to take a quick second to announce we have our first partnership. This company does not do sponsorships, so they're not paying us, but they are awesome, and we wanted to work with them anyway. Ultra Sabers is your one-stop shop for durable, combat-ready lightsabers. Each lightsaber is made out of lathed aluminum, and you can get replicas of many of your favorite lightsabers from the Star Wars universe. I myself got this lightsaber out of their mystery box, and I love it so much. It is the Dominix LE V4 with a red blade. This hilt has a beautiful black anodize on it, and I even added some gold pinstriping to really make it my own. The lightsaber sits above my desk as a decoration, and it is the ultimate accessory to any Star Wars costume I make. I've purchased these as gifts before, and everyone I have given them to has absolutely loved them. When I was in college, some buddies of mine, we all bought Ultra Sabers, and we used to wait till dark, go outside, and just let our dark or light side nature take care of the rest, and we had such a blast. If you want to grab an Ultra Saber for yourself, you can use our creator code TalkAboutTatooine10, which will be listed in the comments, for 10% off your order. Additionally, this is the cool part. You can become a Patreon where we will be giving away 2 mystery box sabers purchased out of our own pocket for 2 of our lucky patrons. All you have to do is sub to our Patreon and retweet our post on Twitter, and you will be entered to win one of 2 beautiful sabers. Now, back to the show.
So what we're going to go over today, guys, is we are going to be covering Imperial Knights. Again, as the intro stated, Imperial Knights are basically the stepping stones from like, hey, you really like super soldiers, but you can't afford a walking skyscraper that has cannons attached to it. Yeah, well, neither can we. So let's make something in the middle. And those are Imperial Knights. So Imperial Knights, the index for that just got released earlier this week, along with all the other Imperium indexes, or indices, as we're very fond of saying here. Indices, thank you. I don't like that, but all right. You'll find...
Thanks, I hate it.
Another thing that I noticed as I was reading through this index was that this is actually a 2-part index. So pages 1 to 28 is Imperial Knights. So keep that in mind. And then once you reach page 29, it does switch to Chaos Knights. So if you guys are looking for the Chaos faction, it is located in the Imperium first index. But if you guys are looking at warhammercommunity.com, which is where all of these indexes are found, then it's under Imperial Codexes. You click on Imperial Knights and it's got Chaos stuff in it too. So just a heads up, everybody. At first, when I was going through, I was like, oh, sweet, this isn't that bad. And then I was like, oh, wait, this is Chaos stuff all of a sudden. So
I wonder if that's like a slide joke for like, oh, the Imperium is like corrupt because there's chaos everywhere. But also, if you physically buy Imperial Knight, it comes with the kit to build a Chaos Knight.
Most likely.
Version of itself. Like, no, that's 100%. It does.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that they're probably keeping those together because people who play Knights...
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, people who play Knights are like, yeah, we want the option to be able to play Chaos Knights as well. Which, in my opinion, I'm like, Chaos Knights kind of have a better aesthetic. They're much more like... This is going to sound dumb if for anyone who plays Warhammer, but they're much more like demonic looking, and they're so much scarier. So I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't you want to play Chaos Knights? That sounds better in every way. Plus, they've got cool flail things. I'm like, yeah, I want one of those.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Chaos and the Imperial Knight rules because I'm running... I run Dark Angels, and I'll probably also build a Death Guard army at some point in the future, and I would like to run their respective Free Blades, which is like a one-off having a single knight in your army. And so instead of like 6 Titanic Walkers, you just get, you know, all your Dreadnoughts, all your infantry, all your aircraft. Oh, also I'm throwing in a whatever big knight boy, Canis Rex or whatever.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Because they have some cool weapons. Just looking at the data sheets, I'm like, I need to buy all of these.
Yeah. There's
I'm so excited.
So many. I wonder if I downloaded that. Or, oh gosh, I think I did the thing that you did last week was I downloaded the index on the wrong computer.
I've downloaded the index on my phone, my work computer, my personal computer, and my tablet. They're like, wow, our indexes are so popular. I was like, well, divide that number by 4, and that might be closer to the real amount of people looking at your stuff. Right. Or if you're like me, sometimes you download things like 6 or 7 times because you're like, oh, I can't find it in the folder. I guess I'll just go to the website and download it again.
Yeah. I thought I put this in the folder, but apparently I did not. So... anytime that we're as we're getting started on this, I love the art that is in these. Just quick shout out to all of the artists that work their absolute little fingies off for this. I'm scrolling through right now and I'm just like, this all looks so good. It looks so good.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Man, I could never paint a knight this well. Anyways, we're going to start off with the army rule here, guys. It might take a little bit, but with more practice becomes more better.
Exactly.
With the introduction of 10th edition, as you guys know, really the main theme of 10th edition is everything needs to be simpler. That is like the main core tenet of Warhammer going into 10th edition. It's like we're going to keep the game
not simple.
Yeah, simplified. Yeah, definitely not simple still. And so there's going to be usually like a different like army rule for all of these different like detachment rules, as they're also referred to as well. There's a lot going on here, and there's certain, because these are basically Titanic units, these are like, these operate with slightly different mechanics, which is kind of nice. So
I will say, going off of the simplified, not simple rules that they're going off of in 10th edition, I actually tried to get into Imperial Knights when we were doing some tabletop simulator games of Warhammer. I was like, oh, I can try out Imperial Knights. Like, I can play whatever army I want because it's all free resources. The rules were so confusing, at least to me. Maybe you're like, hey, Andrew, you're maybe not that smart. It's like, well, you're more than welcome to come to that conclusion. I couldn't figure it out. It was too much stuff. I was like, nope, I'm just going to go with Death Guard because I get Death Guard. And I also had a ton of fun. So now I really want Death Guard. But these rules, they're simple. I get it. Each army has just a few rules. They have their detachment rule, and then they have some detachment specific enhancements and stratagems, and that's it. It's like, here's a page for this, here's a page for this, here's a page for this. Assemble your army, start rolling some dice. It's so much easier.
I'm very excited.
We're going to start on page 1. So the code chivalric, how do you pronounce that? Let us know in the comments how you pronounce that. Wrong and right answers only. Go crazy.
Yeah, go nuts, guys.
It's a man named Rick who has chivalry. Basically, what this code is dealing with is when you complete certain deeds, you get certain powers. Also, if you complete deeds, you get more CP.
Which is going to be so good.
Also, they do have a note. This is the only way you can gain, or you can only gain CP in this way once per battle. So you can gain a one-time boost of 3 CP if you complete a deed, which 3 CP is a lot. That's really good. 2 of the oaths. 1 is lay low the tyrant. What you have to do is you have to destroy your enemy's warlord. Simple. It is a 1-sentence, do this thing. And what happens when you do this? Each time that model is selected to shoot or fight, reroll hit rolls of 1 and your wound rolls of 1. That's awesome.
Yeah, so this is really cool because the new Code Chivalric ability, basically it gives you a different ability based on which oath you decide to take. Mm-hmm. And that just stays there. Then once you complete the deed, you get that bonus of 3 CP as well. So it really just depends on how you want to play. The second oath you're able to take is Reclaim the Realm. So the oath ability, instead of getting your rerolls of hits and on ones and reroll of wounds of ones, you get an added 1 inch to this model's move characteristic and add 1 to the advance and charge rolls made for this model. The deed that you have to complete to get that 3 CP, and arguably I would say this one's a little bit harder, is the deed is completed if you control 1 or more objective markers in your opponent's deployment zone.
Yes.
So yikes.
Strategically, if you're going to choose one of these, if you are leaning more on the Titanic end of the spectrum for your Imperial Knights, choose Lay Low the Tyrant. Mm-hmm. They have the biggest guns. They'll be able to chew through whatever unit that warlord is probably attached to, or if they're running a Primarch, he's just going to probably have the lone operative rule. You're going to want to choose Lay Low the Tyrant so you can just wipe him off the board as fast as possible and start re-rolling. So the things you need to do to win in 10th edition, you need to move, you need to battle shock your opponent, and you need to re-roll as much as possible. So when you use Lay Low the Tyrant, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to be re-rolling hits and wounds of 1. Before, at least in the Space Marine Codex for 9th edition, you had to have a unit surrounded by a lieutenant and a captain to be able to do this. And it was limited to an aura. So being able to have an army-wide ability, that is insane.
Oh, yeah.
Like your odds of winning probably skyrocket by like 25% if you are able to complete Lay Low the Tyrant. And honestly, Reclaim the Realm, if you know that your enemy is not going to be able to do a lot of damage, because these are high toughness models. Mm-hmm. If you know your opponent is going to have trouble pushing you off the objective, Reclaim the Realm is going to get you to those objectives and you're going to be able to stay on them. You're going to be able to sit on them. You're going to be able to use your superior OC values, and you're going to win games. Both of these codes are game changers.
Some of these, like the kind of the standard move characteristic between a lot of these different guys is between 10 and 12 inches. So if you're getting an immediate 1 inch on move and a 1 inch on advance, I should say, you are going to be able to a perfect advance roll would give you 17 inches of movement, which then if you're charging an objective, which most likely you would in an opponent's objective deployment objective, they probably had units on them, because if they don't, they're not getting those points. And then I don't know what that person would be doing anyway with all of those units, but you're going to be able to do some pretty cool stuff. You're going to be able to cross a lot of ground, if not in turn one, probably in turn two. And once, I don't know about you, but the last thing I want is a Reaper Chainsword and Thunderstrike Gauntlet coming down with like a total of potentially 20 attacks, just sweeping through my orc boys. Hard pass on that.
Yeah, that's going to be rough.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be real rough.
Really quickly. So the looking through this index, you have your armigers and you have your knights. The knights are the Titanic models. They're really big. And the armigers are the smaller, faster ones. And the armigers do not have the Titanic keyword for the most part, if not entirely.
Yeah, because there's let me see, there's the Armiger Helverin, Armiger Warglaive, and I think those are the only two Armiger variants. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I believe so.
Then the rest of them come into the Knight category. So that's kind of the two classes of the different Imperial Knights. You have your Armigers, your Knights, and then you have your kind of final one, which is Canis Rex, and he's kind of a unit of his own a little bit.
So one thing we want to also talk about is the Bondsman abilities that basically... Questoris Knights that have the Bondsman abilities, they can choose a little buddy, an Armiger, to select, and both of those units get whatever Bondsman ability they have. For example, the Knight Errant, it has a cool Bondsman ability where it says, hey, me and this Armiger are now going to get the assault characteristic, and we're going to be better at advancing. This is the only place in the index where Knights get the assault characteristic. If you are playing one of these armies, I don't think I can recommend advancing, because you're running such a crazy elite army that if you don't have the assault keyword, you're missing out on a ton of key damage.
Absolutely.
They
and their
already
move
have
characteristic is good. And
it's
with
very
the
good.
super heavy walker ability, they can go over most terrain as if it's not there.
Yeah, use those abilities as best you can, but for the most part, I really can't see places where you would want to advance, because you get to miss out on so much firing. If you were to advance with a Knight Paladin, for instance, and let's just say it has it's coming out with its heavy stubber, its Reaper Chainsword, and its Icarus autocannons. The heavy stubber is 3 shots with rapid fire 3, and then the Icarus autocannons are also 3 shots. They're twin linked and they have anti-fly. They have a huge range. That's a lot of stuff. I think it also has a Melta gun.
Yeah, it does.
It does. And like Melta is not really a gun you want to miss out firing, because this is a Melta gun with the Melta 2. So you're going to do D6 plus 2 damage if you're within half range. It doesn't have a very long range. That means it has to be within 6 inches of something. That's really, really close. But you need that damage output, because if you can go into something, if you can get onto an objective and you've killed so many of their models that they're automatically battle shocked, nothing is going to beat your OC 10. Like, that's your objective now. If you're absolutely confident that you can take out a unit sitting on top of an objective with like your Reaper Chainsword, this thing with the sweep characteristic has 12 attacks, AP -3, strength 9, 2 damage apiece. That is going to obliterate a Space Marine unit, probably is going to battle shock a unit of Terminators. They dead.
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking of this in the context of my army. I'm like, okay, a toughness 12 unit means I am probably only going to be wounding on 6s, even in melee, and that is going to suck.
Yeah, if you go up against this army and you don't have anti-tank, you're gonna have a bad time.
You're going to have a really bad time.
You better hope that you have devastating wounds on everything, because that's the only way. That is the only way you're going to take these guys down, is devastating wounds.
Looking at my army right now, really the only thing that would be able to take one of these down is going to be my command squad, and that's about it. I refer to my command squad as Gaz, Makari, and the Mega Knobs I will usually be attaching him with.
So really what you're saying is I need to go buy an Imperial Knight. A slight aside, I've set some weight loss goals for myself, and once I get to certain weights in my journey, I've talk with my wife and be like, hey, these are maybe the kind of rewards I want to give myself, so to kind of give myself some additional long-term motivation. And one of them is like a big Warhammer purchase, and I'll probably get Lionel Johnson or a knight.
Yeah. Very cool. And you'll run the
I'm
knight
excited.
as a free blade, I'm assuming.
I would run it as a free blade. I would actually like to get 2 knights, one Chaos Knight and one Imperial Knight, so we'll see. But there's a lot more abilities that we need to keep going over. Let's talk about Indomitable Heroes.
All right, guys, so we're going to go over the detachment rules. So if your army faction is Imperial Knights, you can use the Noble Lance detachment rules. This means that all Imperial Knights model in your army have a Feel No Pain of 6-up ability. If your army is honored, those models have a Feel No Pain of 5-up ability. And remember, if you guys, as we said at the beginning of the episode, your army becomes honored if you complete your oath. So your Feel No Pain basically increases. And now, Andrew, correct me, because I have never run an army with Feel No Pain, but Feel No Pain is the step after you do your saves. So once you've made your saving throw, anything that goes through, you have an additional chance to ignore those wounds.
Yeah, so the Feel No Pain rule is each time this model would lose a wound, roll 1d6. If the result equals or exceeds X, so in this case, it's Feel No Pain 6-up is the hardest to get, and Feel No Pain 5-up is 1 pip easier to get. Anytime that result equals or exceeds, in this case 5 or 6, that wound is not lost. This is really good because, well, you just don't lose wounds. It's like an additional save, and it's just really good. I don't think this stops mortals. Oh, that's not true. Each time a model with this ability suffers damage and so would lose a wound, including wounds lost due to mortal wounds. So that's really good.
That is really good.
A Feel No Pain is the only way that I know of to block mortal wound damage. That's really good. If you want your guys to survive, have a Feel No Pain.
There's also a few different enhancements. There are 5 different enhancements, actually, that you can use if you're running a Noble Lance detachment. The first one is your revered Knight Aura. Imperial Knights only, while a friendly Imperial Knight model is within 6 inches of the bearer, improve that model's leadership characteristic by 1. If your army is honored, increase the range of this aura by up to 12 inches. Not increase it by 12, increase it to 12.
And like we said, one of the keys to winning 10th edition games is battle shock your opponents and resist battle shock on your units. Do the battle shocking, not the battle shocked. Next one is Mysterious Guardian. This is for Imperial Knight models only. This bearer has the deep strike ability. This is bonkers, being able to deep strike an Imperial Knight. Once per battle at the end of your opponent's turn. So I go, you go, now it's the end of your turn. If I'm not within engagement range of any units, it can fade away. If it does, remove it from the battlefield. Then, in the reinforcement steps of your subsequent movement phase, set it up anywhere in the battlefield, 9 inches horizontally, away from enemy units. If the battle ends and the bearer is not on the battlefield, it is destroyed. So don't do this on your last turn.
I was going to say, yeah, so there's a time window that you have to use this for, but this is kind of bonkers, and I love the lore behind this rule. Is like the knights are not just like hey, we're going to fight open in the blue skies. They're like causing mass mayhem. There's like dust, dirt, smoke, fire everywhere. And then all of a sudden your army loses sight of an Imperial Knight and you're like, where did it go? And it's like, maybe it's an Armiger Knight and it's snuck around your battle lines. And then you see a thermal lance pop through the smoke and it just decimates your army from behind. And you're like, oh, there it is. Like, so I think that's going to be super cool. And I'm sure that there's probably some really cool books that cover some of the cool things that the Imperial Knights do.
Well, because it starts out with, this bearer has the deep strike ability. Does that mean you can deep strike it from turn 1? Or does it have to come onto the battlefield first, and then you can deep strike it?
You would have to take it off the field. Then you can deep strike it.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you for answering my question. I'm sure some of our listeners probably had the same question, or they didn't because they're smarter than I am, which is probable.
Next one we've got is the Mythic Hero. The Questoris model with a Bondsman ability only. Each time the bearer uses its Bondsman ability, you can select one additional friendly armature model within 12 inches of the bearer that is not already affected by a Bondsman ability. Until the start of your next command phase, that model is also affected by the Bondsman ability. Basically, you're able to spread those abilities out just a touch.
Share the load. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. I love Lord of the Rings so much.
Now we get into the banner of Macarius Triumphant. Andrew, hit us.
So this is a gift from Lord Solar Macarius himself. So Imperial Knight models only. If you control an objective marker at the end of your command phase and the bearer is within range of that objective marker remains under your control even if there's no model in range of it until your opponent controls it at the start of any turn. It's sticky objectives is what that means. Death Guard has a similar rule. They do the same thing, but they call it infecting a point. It just means you don't have to camp on that objective. So this is really good. If your opponent, so this is the best way to use this in my opinion. If your opponent doesn't have anything to deep strike, there's no reason for you to stay in your deployment zone unless you have like a secondary saying so. So what you do is you sticky that objective and then you walk off, because once you walk off, if they did have a deep strike, they would be able to deep strike into your deployment zone after. I think they can deep strike into your deployment zone. It's only pre-game moves where you can't do that. And you basically just lock onto those points. You can get into a better firing position. That's how you're going to use this.
That's so cool.
Nathan, can you explain to us Unyielding Paragon, please and thank you?
Yes, so our final ability here, or enhancement, is for Questoris models only. Each time an attack is allocated to the bearer, worsen the AP characteristic of that attack by 1. In a 10th edition, where AP is a much more valuable resource, you're like, hey, it's a lot of AP you got there. Maybe you're shooting a meltagun at me. Sure would be bad if you had less AP on that thing. Making it essentially the strength of a bolter. So that's going to be really, really helpful.
Feels bad.
But that is only going to be for Questoris models. Allocate your attacks smartly, guys. Like, consider the fact that you are going to have 1 pip less of AP when attacking those models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next we're going to go into the stratagems. So just keep in mind, if you're running a free blade, you do not have access to these stratagems. It has to be the Imperial Knight detachment, the what's it called, the lance or whatever, the noble lance. If you're running a free blade, you don't get these. So the first one is Shoulder the Burden. So during your command phase, 1 Imperial Knight for your model until the start of your next command phase. Improve your model's movement, toughness, save, leadership, and OC by 1. Each time your model makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. That's pretty good. That basically means I'm going to turn this guy into just make him better across the board for 1 turn. You can only use the stratagem once per battle, obviously, because it's really good. And if your army is honored, remember, this is if you finish one of those deeds, you can use this stratagem again. If you're running Imperial Knights, step 1, become honored. Complete that deed.
Get honored, because then you can do this again, and it gives you the CP to do it again. You can immediately do that stratagem again.
Yes, it's very good. And if you're taking more fire, you can move on to the second stratagem, rotate ion shields.
For 1 CP, you can use during your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. So again, after it has selected its targets, not before it has rolled its dice. You can target one of your Imperial Knights models from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, the Imperial Knight model has a 4-up invuln save against ranged attacks.
So good. Next one up is Thunderstomp.
New band name, I call it!
So during the fight phase, 1 of your Imperial Knights that has not been selected to fight yet, until the end of the phase, your model cannot target monster or vehicle units, but all melee weapons equipped by your model have the devastating wounds. This is, I think this is a balanced stratagem. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to have devastating wounds against your Warlord Titan. Here's 20 attacks for 2 damage apiece. It's dead. That would be so broken, and we're glad it's not that way. However, if you have something that's not a vehicle, this would be really good in killing Terminators, because for regular damage, any excess is not carried over to the next unit. But if you do mortal wound damage, it does. So if you have a unit of 10 Terminators with a Terminator librarian, and they all have Thunder Hammers, and they're all coming towards you, use Thunder Stomp, give yourself devastating wounds, and wipe them off the board. Or in your case, wipe Mega Knobs or Lich Guard, things like that.
That's going to be wild.
Wild indeed.
Next one we've got is Squire's Duty for 1 CP. Haha, he said duty, insert laugh here. When the start of the shooting phase... I couldn't not say it. So you can use this at the start of your shooting phase or the start of your fight phase. You can target 2 or more Armiger models from your army and 1 enemy unit that is eligible target for all of those Armiger models. The effect, until the end of the phase, improve the strength and AP characteristic of weapons equipped by those Armiger models by 1. If your army is honored until the end of the phase, add 1 to the damage characteristic to those weapons as well. So it's like, okay, add strength, AP, and damage. The only thing that would make that better is just like, hey, you're going to get more attacks too. Like... It's so good.
So this is really good because it selects multiple models, so 2 or more Armiger models from your army and 1 enemy unit that is eligible for a target. This is like a 1-turn. It's not quite Oath of Moment, but it does really do kind of the same thing. It says, hey, we're going to focus on this one and kill him. And Squire's Duty you can use more than once in a game. It's pretty good.
I like that.
Honestly, if you used Squire's Duty every turn, you probably would do all right.
Yeah, you probably would.
Just saying.
Absolutely.
Next one up is Trophy Claim. During your shooting phase or your fight phase, target 1 Imperial Knight model from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight. So it's their turn to roll some dice until the end of the phase. Each time your model makes an attack that targets an enemy unit, I don't know why they have to state that. I'm not shooting my own guys. Add 1 to the wound roll. It's pretty good. If your model destroys that enemy unit, you gain 1 CP. That's really good. But if your model does not destroy that enemy unit during this phase, you cannot use this stratagem again for the rest of the battle.
I love that.
Makes sense.
That's so cool. The last stratagem we've got for Imperial Knights here, guys, is Valiant Last Stand. You can use this during the fight phase. Targets 1 Imperial Knights model from your army that was just destroyed and that is eligible to fight, but has not been selected to fight this phase. You can use this strat on that model, even though it was just destroyed. The effect is, before rolling to see if this model deals any mortal wounds as a result of the Deadly Demise ability, it can fight. When doing so, it is assumed that you have 1 wound remaining or all of its wounds remaining if your army is honored. After it is finished resolving its attacks, resolve its Deadly Demise ability as normal. Restrictions: you cannot target Sir Hector with this stratagem.
Which makes sense. It's a fight on death.
Yes, very, very cool.
Which makes sense because Sir Hector is the only non-knight unit. Like if you destroy Canis Rex, he hops out and can start doing things. He's at the very bottom of the index.
Which I thought was very interesting. I'm like, obviously that means he's the epic hero, which actually I think he has that tag specifically. Yeah, so he is an epic hero, so is Canis Rex. Let's go over just a few of these data sheets. So we have 2 different Armigers to pick from. You have your Armiger Helverin and your Armiger Warglaive. Now these guys are almost identical in stat. They are identical in their main stat lines, but they do have different abilities depending on what you need. So what we're going to go over is we're going to go over the Armiger Hellglaive. Now, this is a movement 12, toughness 10, save 3 up, wounds of 12, leadership of 7 up, and an OC value of 8. So for the small unit in this Imperial Knights Index, it still has an objective controlled of 8. So huge. What you guys are going to see for the ranged weapon is a Melta gun at 12-inch, which 12-inch is so sad when you're shooting something that's big. That is that big. But again,
it has to be right up in its face.
Yeah, this is basically like if somebody is coming at you and you are ready to charge them, you hit them with the Melta gun first. It does have the Melta 2 keyword, which you said is only effective in half range. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It's still D6, which is still a ton of damage, AP -4, strength 9. But strength 9 is not super great, which doesn't really matter because it also has a thermal spear. The thermal spear is 24-inch range, so it has twice the range as the regular Melta gun, and also is Melta 4. D6 plus 4 has a total of potentially 10 damage on just 1 hit, but it also makes 2 attacks instead of 1. The ballistic skill is same 3 up on both, has 3 extra strength, same amount of AP, which is -4, which basically eliminates any save that's not an invuln save right away. That's pretty crazy. And it also comes with the Impetuous Glory ability. Each time this model makes a charge move until the end of the turn, melee weapons equipped have the Sustained Hits 1 ability. It only has one melee weapon, which is the Reaper Chain Cleaver. It has a strike and a sweep character profile, so depending on whether or not you're hitting big things or many things, you can decide if you want more hits on each one of those, which is going to be very cool. Lots of fun stuff there. It does have an invuln save of 5 up only against range attacks. It does not have an invulnerable save against melee attacks, and as you guys know, we don't have brackets. We just have the damaged ability. So if you do manage to take off 8 wounds from this model, it is now damaged, and you get to subtract 1 from the hit roll.
Does it affect its OC value as well?
Nope.
Okay, so some of the knights do suffer an OC penalty after they've been damaged to a certain point, including the knight that I'm choosing for show and tell here. This is the Knight Valiant. So this is going to be the slowest moving knight, I believe, in the entire codex. It only has a movement of 8, but it does have toughness 13, which is pretty high, a 2-up armor save, which is pretty high, 24 wounds, which is so good. That's so many wounds. 6-up leadership and an OC of 10. I picked this one because it has the highest strength weapon that I have seen in 10th edition to date. Maybe the Baneblade Shadow Spear or the Railgun have a higher strength value, but I don't think they do. This comes equipped with a Conflagration Cannon, 2 Shieldbreaker missile launchers, a Thunder Coil Harpoon, 2 Twin Meltaguns, Twin Siegebreaker Cannon, and Titanic Feet. So even without like switching, oh, you can do this or this, it's got so many guns. This thing is a walking gun line. Starting down the page, it has the Conflagration Cannon, 3d6 attacks. It has a floor of only 3 attacks. You could roll triple ones, which would feel so bad. Or you could get 18. Personally, I like that upside. This does have the Ignore Cover and the Torrent ability, so you're auto-hitting. So hopefully you roll a lot of attacks because it's going to do a lot. Strength 8, AP -1, damage 2. That's a lot of damage for a flamethrower.
So nice.
It has 2 Twin Melta Guns. So Melta 2, again, so this is going to be 1 attack each, so really 2 Melta shots. Twin linked, if you're within half range, is going to be d6 plus 2. And then, let's see, you have the Twin Siegebreaker Cannon, which is d6 attacks, Ballistic Skill 3-up, Strength 6, which is not great, AP 0, which is the lowest AP on this entire data sheet, and damage 1. So this is its basic infantry killer. With a strength of 6, you are going to be able to take out battle line infantry horde units pretty well with this. And it does have 2 of them. Does it? Yes. Twin. Oh, no, it just has the 1. Yep, just has the 1. But this is the gun that I really like. It only has an 18-inch range, which is not terrible, but it's not great. It has... So this is the Thunder Coil Harpoon. Anti-monster, 4-up. Anti-vehicle, 4-up. Devastating wounds. A ballistic skill of 2-up. It only gets 1 attack, but it's probably going to hit that attack. If you roll a 1 on this, command point reroll it.
Yep, you want to reroll that. 100%.
You have to. 100%. Strength 24. If that doesn't go through, command point reroll that. AP -6. You cannot make a regular armor save against this. And because it has devastating wounds, you're probably doing a critical hit, in which case it's this 1 attack would translate into 12 mortal wounds. That is devastating.
Why would you have an AP value of -6? What does that do for you?
It is a middle finger to your opponent. That is literally walking up to an enemy war dog, which is the chaos version of the armiger, and one-shot killing it. No invulnerable save. If it doesn't have a feel no pain, it's immediately dead, which would feel kind of bad because the Imperial Knights, one moment, Imperial Knights, even the armigers are going to run you about 140 to 150 points per, whereas, which one are we talking about? The Knight Valiant, 500 points, or 490.
Only 490. That's not as... I guess 490 is basically like if you were playing a game of Combat Patrol, you get 1 unit.
It would literally be your only unit. And it's enough points to where you wouldn't even be able to afford one of your detachment enhancements.
I'd take it, though. 100%.
100%. The cheapest detachment is Revered Knight. I almost said Reverend Knight, which also sounds totally badass. That's 20-point enhancement. So that would put you at 510 and you wouldn't be able to run it.
This makes me want to play Knights.
I know. Dude, this is why going through the indexes is such a dangerous idea for us, because I'm like, well, now I want to buy one of these. Between the Knight Castellan and the Knight Valiant, I'm like, they're huge. They look really fun. Oh my gosh, like the Knight Castellan has something called a Plasma Decimator.
Yeah, Plasma Decimator. Oh, that's a lot of attacks. Up to nine attacks, 48-inch range, which is amazing.
And Homie's got some range.
Wow.
Also, the Volcano Lance is really good as well, and probably will still kill most things.
Anything that says volcano, I want. I'm like, yep, I want to shoot all the volcanoes at all the people.
See, this is the kind of stuff that, like, Warhammer can get so ridiculous so fast, and I'm here for it.
I want to screech Krakatoa at my opponents while just cutting a swath through them.
Okay, Squidward.
I'm glad you got that reference. This is why we do a podcast together.
Lead us through Canis Rex. This is the last unit that we're going to talk about.
Our last hurrah is going to be Canis Rex. This is the epic hero of the Imperial Knights. Weirdly enough, doesn't have as many options as some of the other ones, but what we're looking at is pretty dang good. So its ranged weapon is a Chainbreaker Las Impulsor. You have high intensity and low intensity. So your high intensity has a shorter range, attack D6, ballistic skill of 2 up, strength 14. So it's very similar to your strike and your sweep characteristics. So basically, if you're choosing to have less attacks, that means those attacks have higher strength, higher AP, and higher damage, which is not what we see with ranged weapons most often. This is really what we see with melee weapons. And he actually has, with his melee weapon, Freedom's Hand. So he also has the low intensity. He gets to double his attacks if he is shooting with his low intensity. Both of these have blast. Both of these have sustained hits 1. So that's pretty dang good.
Every weapon on his data sheets has sustained hits 1.
He also has the Chainbreaker Multi-Laser. He's ready to go. That has a 36-inch range, 4 attacks. So it's kind of like your general, like, oh, I need to pop a few Tyranids, like I'll just shoot this into them, which is funny because 4 attacks, like if you took out 4 Tyranid models, it's not going to do you much good. So making sure you have the low intensity and the multi-laser is going to open up quite a few more attacks for that. You might be able to wipe one squad of Necron warriors with that. Then we get into the melee weapons. He has Freedom's Hand, the strike, and the sweep, which again has sustained hits. He just has sustained hits on everything, guys. 5 attacks with strike, 10 attacks with sweep. So again, he gets to double the amount of attacks he takes if you're doing the sweep characteristic. Weapon skill 2 up. So he's really, really good. 20 on the strength. AP -3, damage 9 on the strike characteristic, 10 strength for sweep, -2 AP, 3 damage. Even on the other one, you're like, you still have good AP, damage 3. Oh my gosh. Just
imagine dealing 45 damage in melee.
I can't. Well, I can because I play orcs, but is that ever going to happen? No, because they all get shot off the board beforehand. We're going to go on to the abilities of Canis Rex. We've got the legendary Flea Blade.
Free blade.
I don't know.
What are you trying to say? Flea braid?
Flea blade. So like for a blade
Ew.
covered in fleas. This is a Nurgle blade. It's Canis Rex, so it kind of sounds dog-like anyway. So I'm here for it. Anyways, shenanigans aside, once per turn, you can target this model with a stratagem for 0 CP. You can do so even if you have already targeted a different unit with that stratagem in the same phase. Oh, that's so good. Then you have Chainbreaker. Each time this model makes an attack, an unmodified successful hit roll of a 5-up scores a critical hit. And just to remind you guys, critical hits are auto wound. You do not have to make a wound roll for those. Every time it makes an attack, 5-ups, auto wounding. Because remember, all of the ballistic skills and weapon skills are 2-ups, so a 2 and a 3 is a wound with a hit roll. A 2, 3, and a 4 is a wound with a wound roll. 5 and 6 is just auto wounding. That is so good.
Yeah, that's especially good considering you could take your Chainbreaker Las Impulsor. Jeez, that's a name. Run it on low intensity, get upwards of 12 shots that are only strength 7, but because they're critical hits, they could still break through higher toughness. Wait, no. That's the wound roll.
Yeah, but if it's a critical hit, then you skip the wound roll.
Oh, yeah. Right. So it doesn't take those wounds and turn them into mortals, but it does automatically wound because then they still have to make an armor save and then it still has AP -1. So it's not bad.
Andrew, what happens if Canis Rex takes a harpoon to the face?
Well, first off, he lives because he has 22 wounds.
Yeah, he does actually.
If he takes 2 harpoons to the face, then his pilot, Sir Hector, just casually hops out and now is a playable unit. He runs around. He has the core operative word. He is the epic hero actually piloting this guy. And he has Sir Hector's pistol, which is a 1 attack, 2 up, strength 5, AP -1, damage 2. Anytime you see a damage 2 pistol, that is above average good. It's not great, but it's great for a pistol. And then he has a close combat weapon, which is probably just his fist or whatever. I think he's holding a car battery in one hand and
that is kind of what it looks like. I would say it's probably a knife.
Yeah, he probably has a knife stowed somewhere.
Which in the Warhammer 40k universe, a knife is actually a short sword.
If you're a space marine, yeah. It's like, this is a knife. It's like, that is a Zweihander.
That is
6 feet long.
I was going to say, that is at least 4 feet long.
And let's see. So using Sir Hector, when Canis Rex is destroyed, Sir Hector is treated as a Myrtle is treating as a model disembarked from the destroyed transport. So you have to set him up within 3 inches. And you have to follow the destroyed transport rules. Then he uses his profile as shown on the card. Cannot be selected by stratagems other than core stratagems, so he can like CP reroll. Canis Rex is not considered destroyed until Sir Hector is killed. If he's your warlord and you have Slay the Warlord and he goes and hides behind a building, he's not dead. You've destroyed the robot, but you need to kill the man inside to get the points.
That means I have a follow-up question. Does that mean... So here's how I would logically play that out, and let me know in the comments if you guys think I'm bat for this. Because he's not considered destroyed until Hector is dead, you would, ideally in that position, you would lay the model on its side, and then Hector can escape, but once Hector dies, then does Deadly Demise go off?
Oh... I would assume Deadly Demise goes off when Canis Rex is destroyed.
That would make sense because Sir Hector, what does it say? He has to follow the rules as if a transport was destroyed. But it says set him up within 3 inches. So like, if he blows up, then he might take some damage.
Yeah, he might blow himself up.
Because he has Deadly Demise of D6.
He could literally... He could kill himself. Actually, he probably would. He has a greater than 50% chance of dying from Deadly Demise, which would feel really bad. Which makes sense, though. He's in a giant robot. He shouldn't automatically survive that encounter, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, if he takes a volcano lance through the faceplate, he should be like, I hit the eject button, and it's like, well, your plasma core is going to go critical. You better hustle.
It's like, you missed me. It's like, actually, I eviscerated everything from your waist down, but due to the damage to your spinal column, you didn't feel it. Yes, thank you.
Exactly.
Dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we made it through an entire index. Well, not an entire index, but we went through quite a bit. Andrew, do you have anything to add?
Check out our Patreon. We're doing cool stuff over there, including lightsaber giveaways.
All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching and learning all the new things about the Imperial Knights. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you guys don't miss a thing. We actually have more than just a weekly video coming out. We just did a video on Marvel Snap a few weeks ago as of the time of this podcast releasing. So make sure you guys follow us because we cover everything in the nerddom, Warhammer, Star Wars, Marvel, gaming, all the different things. So make sure you guys keep up on that. If you guys are listening on a podcast platform, make sure you guys leave us a kind review. We would love to get some more visibility on those platforms because that makes it a little bit easier for people to search us. But overall, whatever you guys are doing, if you guys give us that positive feedback, that helps the algorithmic overlord slice this video into the queues of other like-minded folk. Until then, the Emperor protects.